Russia's Security Council Secretary Sergei Shoigu praised on Thursday the work of North Korean soldiers fighting in the Kursk region, saying the two countries have a full-fledged agreement, which is, not only on paper, but also on the battlefield. The way our Korean brothers fight, that's what I call them, someone put it correctly, clearly and succinctly, for our land as if it were their own, Shoigu said. According to Associated Press speaking during a briefing at the 13th Security Summit in Moscow, Shoigu also responded to reports of Germany lifting the limitation of long-range missiles use for Ukraine. I can say that, believe me, we have something to lift too. I won't go on, but we have something to lift in response to their lifting. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz pledged Wednesday to help Ukraine develop its own long-range missile systems that would be free of any Western-imposed limitations on their use and targets as the Kiev government fights to repel Russia's invasion.
Это, конечно, сегодня такое полновесное соглашение, которое не только на бумаге, но и на поле боя, и в окопах, и можно по-разному говорить, и плечом к плечу, и спина к спине, и так как воюют наши корейские братья, я их именно так называю, правильно было сказано, ясно и емко, за нашу землю, как за свою.
Канцлер Германии заявил о снятии с Киева всех ограничений использования дальнобойных орудий по России.
Вот, а то, что касается там нашей реакции на это, я могу сказать, что, поверьте, нам есть что снимать. Не буду продолжать, но нам есть что снимать в ответ на их снятие.
Я бы хотел в том же случае выразить благодарность всем нашим коллегам еще раз и особенно телеканалу «Арти», который являлся нашим самым лучшим видеохостингом и раздавал на все ваши отношения. Да. Спасибо. Спасибо, коллеги.
After years of publicly admiring Vladimir Putin's strong arm, US President Donald Trump has dramatically changed his rhetoric. Over the weekend, he said the Russian president has completely lost his mind. The comment came after another wave of Russian airstrikes on civilian targets in Ukraine, which have become a familiar element of the Kremlin's strategy. But behind the dry facts is the increasingly obvious mental aggravation of Putin himself, writes The Times. According to experts, the root of this madness is the Russian president's isolation during the COVID-19 pandemic. While leaders in most of the world maintained a certain public mode, Putin literally disappeared from the scene. He spent up to 2 years in his residence at Novo-Ogarevo outside Moscow, avoiding any contact with even the highest officials. The residence was equipped with disinfection tunnels, and visitors, including veterans, had to undergo 2 weeks of isolation before the meeting. All of this limited Putin's communications to a tight circle of security officials led by Nikolai Patrushev, the man who propagated conspiracy theories about a US invasion, animal marriages in Europe, and the evacuation of Western elites to Siberia because of a supervolcano eruption. Psychologists and experts suggest that such isolation, coupled with paranoia and an information vacuum, may have significantly affected the Russian president's sanity. Former Kremlin advisor Gleb Pavlovsky confirms the previous Putin was sensible. Now he is reacting to the pictures in his own head. Political analyst Abbas Galyamov adds, when a person loses self-control, it doesn't end well. The signs of a radical change in Putin's behavior were first publicly noticed by then US Senator and new Secretary of State Marco Rubio back in February 2022 after the invasion of Ukraine. There is something wrong with Putin, he wrote on social media at the time, but while the words sounded like a warning then, today they sound like a diagnosis. Ironically, Putin is a prisoner of the political system he has built around himself for the past 24 years. Like many dictators, he cannot walk away from power and enjoy a quiet retirement, even if he wanted to. He is too attached to and dependent on the mind-boggling wealth and power he has accumulated during his time as a public servant. But even if Putin got to keep his palaces and yachts, there would be no guarantees of safety in retirement. If Putin gave up power, his successor might come after him. Putin's personal authority, charisma and influence would always be a threat to his successor as long as he was alive, a tempting target for the next ruler, and Putin knows it. The occupiers understand that the illegally built Crimean bridge remains in the field of vision of the Ukrainian defense forces and therefore are creating an alternative route by land in the south of the country. The spokesman for the Ukrainian Navy, Captain 3rd Rank Dmitry Pletenchuk, spoke about this on the air of the telethon. They are investing quite seriously in the infrastructure on land in the occupied territories of the south of the country because they want to play it safe. Because the bridge, is in our field of vision and they understand perfectly well that it simply won't be able to stand there, Pletenchuk said. At the same time, he noted that the Russians are very carefully guarding the overpass that they illegally built across the Kursk Strait to the Ukrainian peninsula of Crimea, which was annexed in 2014. In fact, there have been no structural changes there for a long time in terms of security. They are really making every effort to preserve this facility. The so-called Crimean Bridge is of logistical and ideological interest to them, said a representative of the Ukrainian Navy. In this case, General Ben Hodges, former commander of the US Army in Europe, expressed that the United States of America should not have started the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia with the idea that Kiev should give up some of its territories. This is before any real negotiations. I don't understand this approach. It's wrong. Ukraine should not give in to pressure and give up part of the territory, especially such a strategically important one as Crimea. Crimea is not just a piece of Ukraine because of its geographic location, Hodges said. He believes that Ukraine can return Crimea. In his opinion, this will cause a turning point within the Russian Federation itself. The general noted that Putin will not agree to diplomatic agreements that would provide for the renunciation of Crimea. However, according to Hodges, Ukraine can do this by force. I trust the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. They are acting very wisely. Crimea must be isolated so that the Russians cannot either get there or retreat. This means that the large bridge must be destroyed sooner or later. Crimea must also become unusable. All this can be done through precision strikes, special operations and sabotage. When Crimea is isolated, then Ukraine will be able to take it back. In the end, it will be necessary to enter there with troops. But I cannot imagine a landing operation now. It is unrealistic in the conditions of a modern war with drones and long-range weapons, he explained.